Mississauga is the most searched suburb of Toronto, and I get why. It's nearby, it's more affordable, and it looks great on paper. I've helped a lot of people make this move, and for the right person, it's really great. But get it wrong, and you won't just be disappointed, you'll be stuck in a daily grind that doesn't work for who you are. Today, we're going through 5 honest reasons you might not want to move to Mississauga, including reason number 4, which almost nobody warns you about before you sign a lease or buy a home here. My name's Jordan Abrams. I've been helping people move to the GTA for 9 years. So if you're curious, reach out. All my info is down below. Let's get into it. Reason number 1, it's more expensive than you think. The number 1 reason people consider Mississauga over Toronto is price. The savings are real. You're going to pay less than you would in the city. But the gap is a lot smaller than most people expect. And once you factor in everything, it can disappear almost entirely. Here's what the numbers actually look like. Your average detached home in Mississauga right now is around 1.4 million. A townhouse is around 700 to 800,000. And a semi is going to run you somewhere between 900,000 and a million. And if you want a condo, you're looking at 500 to 550,000 for anything decent. These aren't Toronto prices, but they're not small town Ontario prices either. And here's what catches people off guard. Property taxes in Mississauga are actually higher than Toronto. Most people assume the opposite. Toronto has one of the lowest property tax rates of any major city in Ontario. Mississauga's rate is meaningfully higher, so that gap between the two cities gets smaller again. Now, add a car. In Mississauga, you're almost certainly adding a car. We're going to get into why in reason number 2, but the average car insurance premium in Ontario on top of payments, gas, and maintenance adds hundreds of dollars a month to your budget. The Toronto Star once ranked Mississauga as the second most expensive city to live in North America relative to income, just behind New York. Most people hear Mississauga and think affordable. The reality is a lot more complicated than that. Quick quiz, true or false? Mississauga has more people living in it than all of Vancouver. Drop your answer in the comments, answers coming up later. And if you want help running the real numbers for your specific situation, what you'd actually spend month to month in Mississauga versus Toronto, reach out directly, pause the video, write down my number, all my info's on screen and down below. I personally get back to everyone. Reason number 2, the commute will grind you down. If you're moving to Mississauga from another city, there's a good chance part of the appeal is being close to Toronto, close enough to access the city when you want to, without paying Toronto prices. And look, geographically that's true. Mississauga sits right next to Toronto, but actually getting into the city is a different story. There's no subway in Mississauga. The last TTC subway stop heading west is Kipling Station in Etobicoke, and that's still about 10 kilometers from Mississauga city center. So if you're commuting into Toronto for work, you're either driving to Kipling, parking, and taking the subway in, or you're driving the whole way. And driving the whole way means the 401, the QEW, or the 403, which are some of the most congested highways in North America during rush hour. One counterpoint though for commuting, the GO train is genuinely a good option if you live near a station. Clarkson, Port Credit, Cooksville, Arundel, you can get to Union in under 30 minutes and it's reliable. But here's the catch. GO service is still largely peak hour focused. If your schedule doesn't fit neatly into a 9 to 5, or you want to stay in the city for dinner or a show on a Tuesday night, getting back becomes a real struggle. Now there is some light at the end of the tunnel. Eventually, the Hazel McCallion LRT along Hurontario Street is coming. 19 stops connecting Port Credit up through Mississauga into Brampton. When it finally opens, it will genuinely improve getting around within the city. But here's the thing, it's not open. The original target was fall 2024. Construction is now expected to wrap up in 2028, but that's before testing and commissioning, which historically adds months or years on top. The mayor has floated 2029 as a realistic possibility, but if the Eglinton Crosstown LRT in Toronto is any kind of guideline, we could be waiting quite a while. That one took over 20 years from start to finish. I'm not kidding. So if you're moving to Mississauga in 2026, banking on that transit improvement, you're waiting at minimum 2 years, probably more. Bottom line is this. If you work in Toronto and you're not near a GO station, you're almost certainly buying a car, sitting in traffic, and adding real time and money to your daily life. And that changes the affordability calculation from reason number 1 all over again. Coming up in reason number 3, and this one surprises people more than almost anything else we've talked about Mississauga with, We're talking about something you feel the moment you arrive, but nobody really warns you about ahead of time. Reason number 3, it's one of the least walkable cities in Canada. And I don't mean that as an insult, it's just the reality of how the city was built. Mississauga was designed around the car. Wide roads, big box stores, sprawling subdivisions, strip malls, parking lots as far as you can see. If you need to get anywhere, you're almost certainly driving there. Now, if you're coming from a smaller town or a suburban area, this might feel completely normal to you. But if you're coming from Toronto or really any city with a walkable core, this is a lifestyle shock most people don't see coming. In Toronto, you can walk to your coffee, grocery store, gym, restaurants pretty reliably in most areas. A lot of people build their entire daily life within a 10 to 15 minute walk from their front door. That's just not Mississauga. Outside of a few specific pockets, your daily life here involves getting into a car for almost everything. Those pockets do exist though, and they're worth knowing about. Port Credit is genuinely walkable. It's a charming waterfront village with independent shops, restaurants, and a real street level energy. Streetsville has a similar feel. A historic little main street with local character. And the Square One corridor is getting denser with more condo developments every day. But here's the thing, those are the exceptions and they're not cheap. The most walkable parts of Mississauga are also the most expensive. WalkScore actually ranks Mississauga well below Toronto across almost every neighborhood category. Toronto consistently scores in the walker's paradise or very walkable range in its core. Most Mississauga scores car dependent. That's not a small difference, that's a completely different way of living. And this matters beyond just convenience. It affects your health, your social life, your spontaneity, your sense of connection to where you live. Quiz answer. Mississauga's population is around 780,000, which is actually over 20,000 more than Vancouver's, which is at around 756,000. Most people have no idea. It's one of the biggest cities in Canada that somehow still manages to feel like a suburb. Up next is reason number 4, and this might be the one that takes Mississauga completely off the list for you. There's no workaround, no neighborhood that fixes it. There's really nothing you can do about it if this is important to you. Reason number 4, Mississauga doesn't really have a nightlife. And I know that might sound like a minor thing, but hear me out, because this goes deeper than just going out on a Saturday night. Mississauga is a city of close to 800,000 people, and when the sun goes down, it mostly goes quiet. Restaurants close early, there are very few late night bars, clubs, or live music venues compared to Toronto, which seemingly has endless choices. The options that do exist are mostly concentrated around Square One, and even those aren't what you call a thriving late night scene. If you want that kind of energy, the kind where you can walk out at 11 p.m. on a Tuesday and find somewhere to go, it's not here. Toronto is almost 24 hours. There are neighborhoods where something is always open and always happening. Now here's the truth about who this matters to and who it doesn't. If you're in your 20s, if you're a young professional, if city energy is part of why you're moving to the GTA in the first place, this is a real deal breaker and Toronto wins by a mile. But if you're in the family stage of life, kids, schools, backyards, community, the trade-off is almost completely irrelevant for you. You're not looking for a 2 a.m. bar crawl, you're looking for a good neighborhood, good schools, and a safe place to raise a family, and Mississauga delivers on all of that. Reason number 5, not everywhere in Mississauga is safe. On the surface, Mississauga has a reputation as a generally safe and family-friendly city, and for the most part that's true. But just like Toronto, there are streets and pockets that have had a bad reputation for years. Areas that look fine on paper, look fine on a listing, fine on Google Maps, but when you show up, you realize pretty quickly that something's off. And I'll be straight with you, some parts of Mississauga are legitimately sketchy after dark. I'm not going to name specific streets on camera because that's not fair to anyone, but what I will tell you is that the price variation across Mississauga neighborhoods is significant, and sometimes a deal that looks too good to be true is too good to be true for a reason. A condo or a house that's priced noticeably below everything else in that area isn't always a great find. Sometimes it's a direct reflection of exactly where it sits and what surrounds it. Brampton is right to the north of Mississauga, and parts of Brampton have been getting pretty bad in recent years. Rising crime rates, overcrowding, some of the most aggressive and reckless driving I've ever seen in the GTA. If you're thinking about starting a family in this part of the city, that's not something you can afford to ignore. The neighborhoods that consistently come up as the most desirable, Port Credit, Lorne Park, Streetsville, are desirable for real reasons. Great community, great schools, safe streets, but those areas carry a price tag to match. The further you drift from those pockets chasing a lower number, the more important it becomes to know exactly what you're moving into. And this is something that's almost impossible to figure out from outside the GTA. You can look at crime maps, you can scroll on Reddit threads all night, but nothing replaces talking to someone who actually knows this market and grew up here. That's exactly what I do. If you're trying to figure out where in Mississauga actually makes sense for your budget and your family, reach out. All my info is down below, and I personally get back to everyone. Verdict: who Mississauga is for. So look, after everything we just covered, let's be real about what Mississauga is and isn't. It's more expensive than people think. The commute into Toronto without the GO train is genuinely painful. It's car dependent in a way that catches people off guard. The nightlife basically doesn't exist. And if you don't know which neighborhoods to target, you can end up somewhere that isn't safe. Those are real things, and they're worth knowing before you sign anything. But here's the other side of that coin, and this is important. Mississauga genuinely delivers for the right person. If you're a family with kids who need space and strong schools on a budget under $1 million, Mississauga makes a lot of sense. And you're getting into those school zones for hundreds of thousands of dollars less than you'd pay for the equivalent quality school in Toronto. If you work near a GO station or you work remotely, the commute argument mostly disappears. And you're getting more space, more parking, and a quieter pace of life without completely leaving the GTA behind. And right now, in 2026, we're in one of the most favorable buyer's markets I've ever seen in my entire career. Condos under 500,000, detached homes under $1 million in certain pockets, sellers negotiating. If you buy the right home in the right location right now, 5 years from now, you may look back on this as one of the best financial decisions you ever made. The people who thrive in Mississauga know exactly what they're signing up for. The people who regret it moved here thinking it was basically Toronto, and it isn't. And now you know that before you commit. So if after watching all of this, Mississauga is still on your list, or if you're trying to figure out whether it should be, that's exactly the conversation I have with buyers every single week. You tell me your budget, where you work, what your family needs, and I can tell you in about 20 minutes whether Mississauga makes sense for your specific situation and which neighborhoods or streets to target. All my info is down below and on screen right now. I personally get back to everyone. If this video helped you out at all, hit the thumbs up and subscribe. I put out new Toronto real estate content every single Tuesday and Friday, and trust me, you're going to want to see what's coming up next. I'm Jordan Abrams. I'll see you around town.